Oprah Winfrey. There are few names in the world that carry as much weight, as much hope, and as much history as Oprah Winfrey. For decades, she has been a beacon of inspiration, a symbol of triumph over adversity, and a voice for those who have felt voiceless. Her journey from poverty to power, from silence to global influence, is the stuff of legend. But behind the dazzling success, the billion-dollar empire, and the millions of lives she has touched, lies a story marked by pain, loss, and heartbreak so profound that even the world's most beloved talk show host could not escape its shadow. At 71, as Oprah stands atop a mountain of achievements, the tragedies that have shaped her life remain as haunting as ever. Reminders that even the strongest spirits are forged in fire. Oprah Gail Winfrey was born on January 29, 1954, in rural Kosciuszko, Mississippi, to a teenage single mother, Vernita Lee. Her earliest memories are not of comfort or security, but of struggle and survival. Raised in abject poverty, Oprah's childhood was a daily battle against hunger, neglect, and the crushing weight of being unwanted. She wore dresses made from potato sacks, endured ridicule from other children, and often went to bed hungry. The world would one day see her as a queen of media, but in those early years, she was just a little girl trying to find warmth in a world that seemed determined to freeze her out. Her mother, Vernita, worked as a housemaid, barely scraping by. Oprah's father, Vernon Winfrey, was mostly absent in her early life, and the sense of abandonment that began in infancy would echo through her entire journey. For the first 6 years of her life, Oprah lived with her grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, on a small farm. Hattie Mae was strict but loving, teaching Oprah to read before she was 3 and instilling in her a love of words and stories. The Bible became her first escape, the verses a lifeline in a world that offered little comfort. But even this fragile stability was shattered when, at age 6, Oprah was sent to live with her mother in Milwaukee. A move that would mark the beginning of her darkest years. Milwaukee was a world away from the quiet fields of Mississippi. The city was cold, crowded, and unforgiving. Oprah's mother worked long hours, leaving her daughter in the care of relatives and family friends. It was during these years that Oprah endured unspeakable abuse, molested by cousins, an uncle, and a family friend. The pain was compounded by silence. She was too young, too scared, and too ashamed to tell anyone. The trauma left scars that would never fully heal. "I was raped at 9, Oprah would later reveal, her voice trembling with the weight of memory. "I was molested from the time I was 9 to the time I was 14. The world would one day see her as a woman of unbreakable strength. But in those moments, she was a child shattered by betrayal. By the age of 14, the tragedies had multiplied. Oprah became pregnant after years of abuse, her body and spirit both battered by the cruelty of those who should have protected her. The baby was born prematurely and died shortly after birth, a loss so devastating that Oprah would carry its shadow for the rest of her life. Alone, grieving, and lost, she was sent to live with her father in Nashville. Vern Winfrey was strict, demanding, and determined to save his daughter from the fate that had claimed so many young black girls in the South. He set curfews, demanded academic excellence, and filled her days with books and church. For the first time, Oprah found a sense of order, a sense of hope. But the pain of her past was never far behind. Even as she excelled in school, winning oratory contests, and earning a scholarship to Tennessee State University, Oprah was haunted by the ghosts of her childhood. The world would one day see her as a woman who could conquer any obstacle, but inside, she was still the little girl in the potato sack dress, still the teenager mourning a lost child, still the survivor of wounds too deep for words. Oprah's journey from the shadows of her childhood to the bright lights of television was not a straight line, but a winding path marked by setbacks, self-doubt, and the constant struggle to believe she was worthy of happiness. In Nashville, under her father's stern but loving guidance, she began to find her voice. She excelled in school, became an honors student, and found solace in public speaking. The applause she received at oratory contests was a balm for wounds that still ached beneath the surface. Yet, even as she collected trophies and scholarships, Oprah battled the lingering sense of shame and unworthiness that her early traumas had planted deep within her. At Tennessee State University, Oprah studied communications, dreaming of a career in radio or television. She was determined to make something of herself, to prove that her past would not define her future. But the world of broadcasting in the 1970s was not welcoming to a young, dark-skinned black woman from poverty. She faced racism, sexism, and the constant pressure to conform to an image that was not her own. Early in her career, a news director told her she was unfit for television news because of her appearance and emotional delivery. The words stung, but they also fueled her determination. Oprah refused to be boxed in by other people's expectations. She would not hide her emotions, her empathy, or her truth. Her first break came at age 19, when she became the youngest and first black female news anchor at Nashville's WLA's-TV. The job was a dream come true, but it came with its own set of challenges. Oprah struggled to report on tragedies with the detachment expected of a journalist. She cried on air, her heart breaking for the people whose stories she told. Critics called her unprofessional, but viewers saw something different, a rare authenticity, a willingness to feel. It was this emotional honesty that would become her trademark, the quality that would one day make her the most trusted woman in America. But the road to stardom was still long and fraught with pain. In Baltimore, where she co-anchored the evening news, Oprah faced relentless criticism from colleagues and management. She was demoted from news anchor to co-host of a low-rated morning talk show, People Are Talking. At first, it felt like a failure, another reminder that she didn't belong. But on that small stage, Oprah discovered her true gift, the ability to connect with people, to draw out their stories, to make them feel seen and heard. The show became a local hit, and Oprah's confidence began to grow. Still, the scars of her past were never far from the surface. Oprah struggled with her weight, her self-image, and her sense of worth. She turned to food for comfort, battling cycles of binge eating and self-loathing. The world would one day watch her weight loss journeys with fascination. But for Oprah, it was always about more than numbers on a scale. It was about trying to fill the emptiness left by years of neglect and abuse. "I used food for comfort," she would later admit. "I used it to try to make myself feel better, to try to fill up the void." Despite these struggles, Oprah's star continued to rise. In 1984, she moved to Chicago to host AM Chicago, a struggling morning show on WLS-TV. Within months, her warmth, empathy, and authenticity transformed the show into the highest-rated talk show in the city. The following year, it was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show, and a new era in television began. Oprah's ability to connect with viewers, to share her own vulnerabilities, and to create a space where people could tell their stories changed the landscape of daytime TV forever. But even as she became a household name, the tragedies of her past continued to shape her life and her work. Oprah's journey was never just about success. It was about survival, about finding light in the darkest places, and about using her pain to help others heal. As The Oprah Winfrey Show exploded into a national phenomenon, Oprah's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. She became a symbol of hope for millions, a living testament to the idea that no matter where you start, you can rise above your circumstances. Her interviews with celebrities, politicians, and everyday people became must-see television, and her book club could turn unknown authors into bestsellers overnight. Yet, for all the power and influence she wielded, Oprah never forgot the pain that had shaped her. In fact, she made it her mission to use her platform to shine a light on the issues that had once threatened to destroy her. Child abuse, poverty, addiction, and the silent suffering of so many who felt invisible. Oprah's willingness to share her own story, to speak openly about her childhood trauma, was revolutionary. In a world where silence and shame had long been the norm, she broke the taboo, inviting others to step out of the shadows and into the light. She spoke of her abuse, her teenage pregnancy, and the loss of her child with a raw honesty that resonated with viewers around the world. Her courage gave others permission to confront their own pain, to seek help, and to believe that healing was possible. "Turn your wounds into wisdom," she would say, and for countless people, those words became a lifeline. But the journey was never easy. The more successful Oprah became, the more she was forced to confront the complexities of fame. The world saw her as a savior, a miracle worker, a woman who could fix any problem with a kind word or a generous check. The pressure was immense, and the loneliness of being at the top was often overwhelming. Oprah's personal relationships suffered under the weight of her public persona. She struggled to trust, to let people in, to believe that she could be loved for who she was, and not just for what she represented. Her relationship with Stedman Graham, her longtime partner, became a subject of endless speculation. The two met in 1986, and their bond was immediate and deep. Yet, despite decades together, they never married, a decision that Oprah has often explained as a choice to protect the love they shared from the pressures and expectations of the outside world. "If we had married, we would not be together," she once said. "Our relationship works because he is secure enough to be with a woman who is as busy as I am." Still, the absence of a traditional family, the decision not to have children, was a source of both freedom and sorrow for Oprah. She has spoken candidly about the pain of her lost child, the longing for a family, and the acceptance that her life would follow a different path. Even as she built an empire, launching the Oprah magazine, founding Harpo Productions, and creating the Oprah Winfrey Network, Oprah continued to wrestle with the shadows of her past. The demands of her career were relentless, and the expectations placed upon her were often impossible to meet. She faced criticism from all sides, accusations of being too powerful, too political, too emotional, or not doing enough. The burden of being a role model, especially for Black women, was both an honor and a heavy weight to carry. Through it all, Oprah remained committed to her mission of service. She opened the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for girls in South Africa, determined to give young women the opportunities she had been denied. She donated millions to charity, advocated for victims of abuse, and used her voice to champion causes close to her heart. But the tragedies of her own life were never far away. The loss of her mother in 2018, after years of a complicated and often painful relationship, reopened old wounds. The death of her half-sister, Patricia, whom she had only recently reunited with, was another blow that left her reeling. For all her success, Oprah's life has been a tapestry woven with both triumph and heartbreak. The world sees the legend, but behind the scenes is a woman who has endured more pain than most can imagine, and who has chosen, again and again, to turn that pain into purpose. As the years passed and Oprah's influence only grew, the world watched her transform from talk show host to cultural icon, philanthropist, and even kingmaker. She became the first black female billionaire, her name synonymous with generosity, wisdom, and the power to change lives. Yet, the higher she climbed, the more she was forced to confront the cost of her ascent. The loneliness of leadership, the scrutiny of the public, and the relentless demands of her own ambition often left her feeling isolated, even as she stood surrounded by admirers. The tragedy of Oprah Winfrey is not just in the pain she endured as a child, but in the sacrifices she made as an adult. The relationships strained, the moments missed, the quiet longing for a sense of home that always seemed just out of reach. Oprah's relationship with her family remained complicated. Her mother, Vernita, and her father, Vernon, both played roles in her life, but the wounds of abandonment and neglect were never fully healed. Oprah tried to provide for them, to offer forgiveness and support, but the scars of the past lingered. When her mother passed away in 2018, Oprah spoke of the complicated relationship they shared, acknowledging both the love and the pain that defined their bond. The loss brought a wave of grief, but also a sense of release, a closing of a chapter that had shaped her in ways both beautiful and brutal. The discovery of her half, sister Patricia, in 2010 was another emotional turning point. Patricia had been given up for adoption as a baby, a secret kept from Oprah for decades. Their reunion was bittersweet, a moment of joy shadowed by the years lost, the family's secrets, and the realization that even in her own story, there were chapters written in silence and sorrow. Patricia's death just a few years later was a devastating blow, a reminder that time is both a thief and a healer, and that some wounds never truly close. Professionally, Oprah faced her own set of heartbreaks. The end of The Oprah Winfrey Show in 2011 marked the close of an era, not just for television, but for Oprah herself. The decision to walk away from the show that had defined her for 25 years was both liberating and terrifying. She poured her energy into new ventures, OWN, her cable network, and a series of high-profile interviews and projects. But the transition was not without its struggles. Ratings for OWN lagged. Critics questioned her choices, and for the first time in decades, Oprah faced the possibility of failure on a public stage. The pressure to reinvent herself, to remain relevant in a rapidly changing media landscape, was immense. Through it all, Oprah continued to battle her own inner demons. Her struggles with weight and self-image persisted, a lifelong battle that played out in front of millions. She spoke openly about her setbacks, her triumphs, and the emotional toll of living in a body that was constantly scrutinized. "I have made peace with my body," she once said, "but it has been a long journey." The world saw her as confident and unbreakable. But Oprah knew the truth. Confidence is not the absence of doubt, but the willingness to keep moving forward in spite of it. The tragedies of Oprah's life are not just the headline moments, the abuse, the loss, the heartbreak, but the quieter sorrows that come with a life lived in the spotlight. The friendships that faded, the trust that was broken, the nights spent alone wondering if she would ever truly belong. For all her wealth and influence, Oprah has often spoken of the loneliness that comes with success, the sense that no achievement can ever fully fill the void left by early wounds. Yet, in the face of all this, Oprah has chosen to live with radical gratitude. She has built a life defined not by what she has lost, but by what she has given. Her legacy is not just in the empires she has built, but in the lives she has touched, the hearts she has healed, and the hope she has inspired in millions who see their own struggles reflected in her story. As Oprah entered her 7th decade, the world continued to look to her for guidance, comfort, and inspiration. She became a living symbol of resilience, a woman who had not only survived the unimaginable, but had transformed her pain into a force for good. Yet, even as she stood at the pinnacle of her career, the tragedies that had shaped her life continued to cast long shadows. The loss of loved ones, the betrayals by those she trusted, and the relentless pressure to be everything to everyone took a toll that few could see. Oprah's public persona was one of strength and serenity, but in private, she wrestled with the same doubts and fears that haunt us all. The death of her beloved dog, Sophie, in 2008, may have seemed a small loss to outsiders, but for Oprah, it was a heartbreak that brought her to tears on national television. Sophie had been her companion through some of the most difficult years of her life, a source of unconditional love in a world that often felt cold and demanding. The grief she felt was a reminder that, no matter how much she had achieved, she was still vulnerable to the pain of loss. Dogs are the closest we come to knowing the love of God on this earth. She once said, her voice breaking with emotion. The world saw a billionaire media mogul, but in that moment, Oprah was simply a woman mourning a friend. Her friendships, too, have been tested by time and circumstance. Oprah's bond with Gayle King, her best friend of more than 4 decades, has been a constant source of strength. Their relationship has weathered rumors, distance, and the demands of fame, but it has also been a lifeline for Oprah, a reminder that true connection is possible, even in a world that often feels isolating. Yet, other friendships have not endured. The pressures of her career, the jealousy of others, and the difficulty of trusting people in the glare of the spotlight have left Oprah cautious, sometimes guarded, and always aware of how quickly relationships can unravel. The tragedies of her past have also shaped her approach to love. Oprah's decision not to marry or have children was not made lightly. She has spoken candidly about the pain of her lost child, the fear of repeating the cycles of her own childhood, and the realization that her calling was to mother the world in a different way. "If I had children, my children would hate me," she once said, reflecting on the demands of her career and the sacrifices she has made. Instead, she has poured her love into her schools, her charities, and the millions of viewers who have found solace in her words. As she has grown older, Oprah has become more reflective, more willing to confront the heartbreaks that have defined her journey. She has spoken openly about her struggles with depression, her battles with self-worth, and the moments when she questioned whether she could go on. The world sees her as unbreakable. But Oprah knows that true strength is found in vulnerability, in the willingness to face the darkness and keep moving forward. Her story is not one of unending triumph, but of resilience in the face of relentless adversity. In recent years, Oprah has faced new challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic forced her to confront her own mortality, to reckon with the fragility of life and the importance of connection. She lost friends and colleagues to the virus, grieved with the world, and used her platform to offer comfort and hope. The isolation of quarantine brought back memories of her lonely childhood, but it also reminded her of the power of community, of the importance of reaching out and holding on to those we love. At 71, Oprah Winfrey stands as a testament to the power of survival, the beauty of compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Her tragedies are woven into the fabric of her life, not as stains, but as threads of gold, reminders that even the deepest wounds can give rise to the greatest wisdom. Now, as Oprah Winfrey stands at 71, her life is a mosaic of heartbreak and hope, a living example of how tragedy and triumph can coexist within a single soul. The world sees her as a billionaire, a media mogul, a philanthropist, and a cultural icon. But beneath the accolades and the applause, she remains a woman who has carried unimaginable burdens: loss, betrayal, loneliness, and the scars of a childhood that could have broken her. Instead, she chose to rise again and again, not in spite of her pain, but because of it. Oprah's legacy is not just in the empires she has built or the millions she has inspired, but in the quiet moments of courage that have defined her journey. She has faced the darkest corners of her past, spoken her truth when silence would have been easier, and used her platform to give voice to those who have none. Her willingness to be vulnerable, to share her struggles with the world, has made her a beacon for anyone who has ever felt alone in their suffering. She has shown that it is possible to turn wounds into wisdom, to transform heartbreak into healing, and to find meaning even in the midst of sorrow. The tragedies of Oprah's life have not ended with childhood. In recent years, she has faced the loss of close friends, the challenges of aging, and the ever-present scrutiny of a world that expects perfection. She has watched as people she loved have passed away, as relationships have changed, and as the world itself has shifted in ways that are both exhilarating and terrifying. Through it all, she has remained steadfast in her commitment to growth, to learning, and to giving back. She has spoken openly about the fears that come with aging: the fear of losing relevance, of being forgotten, of facing the end alone. Yet, she has also embraced the gifts of this stage of life: wisdom, perspective, and the freedom to live on her own terms. Oprah's story is a reminder that tragedy does not discriminate. It touches the rich and the poor, the famous and the unknown, the strong and the vulnerable. What sets her apart is not the pain she has endured, but the way she has chosen to respond. She has refused to let her past define her, to let her losses diminish her, or to let her fears control her. Instead, she has built a life rooted in gratitude, in service, and in the belief that every experience, no matter how painful, can be a source of growth. Her philanthropy has become a cornerstone of her legacy. From building schools in South Africa to funding scholarships, supporting disaster relief, and championing mental health, Oprah has used her resources to lift others up. She has given away millions, not for recognition, but because she knows what it means to have nothing. Her generosity is not just financial, but emotional. A willingness to listen, to understand, and to offer hope where there was none. For every headline about her wealth, there are thousands of untold stories of lives changed by her kindness. At 71, Oprah continues to evolve. She has embraced new projects, new challenges, and new ways of connecting with her audience. Her interviews with cultural leaders, her book club selections, and her candid conversations about life, loss, and love have kept her at the center of the world's attention. Yet, she is also content to step back, to savor the quiet moments, to spend time with Stedman, with Gail, and with the circle of friends who have become her chosen family. She has learned that true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the depth of one's relationships, the impact of one's actions, and the peace that comes from living authentically. The tragedy of Oprah Winfrey is not that she has suffered, but that she has suffered so much and still found the strength to give, to love, and to inspire. Her life is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the power of forgiveness, and to the possibility of redemption. She stands as proof that even the most heartbreaking stories can have chapters of hope, that even the deepest wounds can heal, and that even in the face of unimaginable loss, it is possible to rise, to shine, and to lead others into the light.